If you are dealing with a narcissist, the first thing you need to understand is simple but hard to accept. They are not dealing with you in a normal way. You believe relationships are built on respect, honesty, balance, and real understanding. That is the lens you bring into human connection, because that is how healthy people bond. But a narcissist does not come into the interaction looking for connection. They come in looking for control. That changes everything. Their goal in a conversation is not closeness. It is power. They want admiration. They want attention. They want agreement. They want you to support the version of reality that protects them and lifts them up. If they need to bend the truth, they will do it. If they need to confuse you until you question what you clearly saw, they will do that too. If they need to slowly weaken your confidence so you become easier to manage, they will keep pushing until it works. And the painful part is this: they usually feel no guilt about it. A lot of people think that if they are kind enough, patient enough, calm enough, the narcissist will finally understand and change. That hope keeps many people trapped for years, but it is built on fantasy. A narcissist does not learn through fairness, deep talks, or moral truth. They learn through consequences. That is it. If you miss that point, you will keep getting pulled into the same storm again and again. So stay with me, because this next part matters more than most people realize. Once you understand their game, you stop confusing cruelty for confusion, and you stop calling manipulation a misunderstanding. The next shift is this: stop listening so much to what they say and start watching what they do over time. This one change can wake you up fast. Narcissists are often very good with words. They know how to sound sorry. They know how to promise change. They know how to act wounded. They know how to tell you exactly what your tired heart wants to hear. They may say they understand now. They may say they never meant it. They may even cry, act broken, or make themselves look like the real victim. But words mean nothing if the pattern stays the same. That is the test. Not the apology, not the speech, not the sudden sweet moment, the pattern. If the pattern is lying, disrespect, blame, control, silent treatment, or emotional games, then that pattern is the truth. Everything else is noise. And this is where so many people lose themselves. They keep waiting for the speech to become real, while the behavior keeps showing them the answer every single week. You do not need another perfect explanation. You need to believe the pattern in front of you. That is where clarity begins. And once you see the pattern, you also start noticing the tools they use. Gaslighting is one of the biggest. They deny things they clearly said. They reshape old events. They move details around until you are left confused, tired, and somehow apologizing for things that were never your fault. The more you argue with that distortion, the deeper you get pulled in. And here is the trap. The moment you are forced to defend reality itself, they already have the advantage, because now you are reacting to their script instead of standing in your own truth. Another tactic they use is the hot and cold cycle. And this one is powerful because it hooks the human nervous system in a very deep way. If someone is terrible all the time, it becomes easier to walk away. Pain is clear. But if that pain gets mixed with little moments of warmth, little moments of softness, little flashes of affection, your mind starts chasing the good parts. You begin to think maybe this time it will change. Maybe if you say it better. Maybe if you stay calm. Maybe if you become easier to love, less demanding, less emotional, less you. That is where the trap tightens. You are no longer staying because the relationship is healthy. You are staying because you are chasing relief. And relief is not love. Relief is what people feel when a storm pauses for a moment. That pause can start to feel like hope, and that hope can become addictive. A narcissist may not even understand how calculated this cycle looks from the outside, but the effect is still real. They hurt you, then they offer a little comfort, then they hurt you again, and your system gets trained to wait for the next drop of warmth. This is why people can feel bonded to someone who is actively draining them. Then there is projection. What they are doing, they accuse you of doing. If they are dishonest, suddenly you are the liar. If they are unstable, somehow you are the one who is too emotional. If they are selfish, now you are the problem. This is not random. It keeps the focus off them and puts all the pressure on you. So now instead of studying what is happening, you are busy proving your innocence. And that is exactly where they want you. Watch this carefully. Because when you finally see the pattern clearly, the fog starts to lift. One of the deepest traps in all of this is the need for their approval. Not just in the obvious way, not just trying to impress them or get praise from them. I mean the quieter kind, the automatic shape-shifting, the way you change your tone so they do not snap, the way you over-explain so they do not judge you, the way you hope that if you are patient enough, loyal enough, useful enough, one day they will finally treat you with the respect that should have been there from the start. Most people do not even notice how much of their life starts revolving around this silent chase. And it makes sense because human beings are wired for connection. We expect that effort, love, and care will matter. We expect that if we show our heart, the other person will at least try to meet us halfway. But with a narcissist, your effort often does not soften them. It trains them. Every time you twist yourself into a smaller shape to avoid their criticism, you show them your center can be moved. Every time you wait for their approval to feel okay, you hand them the steering wheel of your self-worth. That is why the goalposts never stop moving. The minute you think you have finally done enough, they create a new rule, a new complaint, a new test you were never supposed to pass. That is how control survives. So hear this clearly. Their refusal to value you is not proof that you lack value. It is proof that they cannot relate in a healthy way. Their inner world is fragile. Their self-image needs constant support. They cannot tolerate being wrong. They cannot let other people shine freely. They cannot offer secure love because control is the language they know best. Once that truth lands in you, something powerful starts to happen. You stop begging to be seen by someone who benefits from keeping you unseen. That is when detachment becomes necessary. Not cruelty, not revenge, not becoming cold at your core. Detachment. Clean, steady, disciplined detachment. This is where healing gets practical. You stop trying to win their understanding. You stop rehearsing speeches in your head. You stop believing that the next perfect conversation will finally unlock their empathy. It will not. That door is not closed because you failed to knock the right way. It is closed because they are invested in not opening it. So now your work changes. You stop feeding the system that is draining you. In daily life, this can look very simple, but it is not easy. It means you stop justifying your normal choices to them. You stop explaining your motives to someone who only listens to collect material against you. You stop trying to correct every lie they tell about you. Let them misunderstand. Let them twist it. Let them sit with the version they choose. Their opinion of you is not an emergency. And for many people, that sentence alone feels like a revolution. Because for so long, your nervous system may have been trained to believe that being misread is dangerous, that being judged must be fixed immediately, that silence means defeat. But with a narcissist, endless self-defense is what keeps you trapped. They love long emotional explanations because it proves they still have access to your energy. This is the part most people miss. Every time you step into the ring to defend your soul to someone committed to misreading it, you keep the bond alive. Not a healthy bond, a draining one. And if you stay with that long enough, you start forgetting who you were before all the defending began. So the new move is different. Less explaining, less reacting. Less emotional labor offered to someone who only uses it to tighten their grip. You also have to let go of the dream of closure from them. This part hurts, maybe more than anything else, because most people want the clean ending. They want the moment where the narcissist finally says, yes, I hurt you. Yes, you were right. Yes, I see what I did. Yes, I am sorry. That moment feels like justice in the mind. It feels like the missing piece that would make all the confusion settle down. But in most cases, That moment never comes in a real way. Maybe you get words, but not truth. Maybe you get an apology, but it is thin, delayed, or followed by the same behavior again. Maybe you get blame dressed up as reflection. And while you are waiting for closure, life keeps moving, and your energy keeps leaking out. So there comes a point where the only closure left is the one you give yourself. Not because it is fair, not because it feels good right away, but because it is real. Closure begins when you accept that their acknowledgement is not required for your healing. It begins when you stop putting your peace on hold until someone who harmed you becomes honest. It begins when you decide that clarity is enough, even if they never agree with it. That decision is powerful. It takes your life out of their courtroom. It ends the trial. And then another shift happens. You stop measuring your worth through their lens. You stop checking if they finally understand your heart. You stop waiting for someone emotionally unsafe to hand you permission to feel whole. And when that happens, something changes in the energy between you. They may sense it before you even put words to it. Because the strongest act of rebellion against someone who survives on your need is this: you no longer need them to confirm what you already know about yourself. One of the biggest mistakes people make with narcissists is assuming that normal rules will protect them. You think if you stay fair, stay calm, stay kind, and keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, they will eventually respond in kind. That idea sounds noble, but it can be dangerous. It is built on the belief that the other person values truth and fairness the way you do. A narcissist often does not. In a healthy disagreement, both people may be upset, both people may have blind spots, but somewhere under the tension, there is still a shared respect for reality. There is still some interest in understanding. With a narcissist, the real goal is often not understanding. It is winning. Not resolution, control. Not peace, position. So your patience, your efforts to explain, your willingness to revisit the issue again and again are not always seen as maturity. They are often read as access to your attention, access to your emotions, access to your self-doubt, access to your time. And as long as they have that access, the system keeps running. This is why being the bigger person does not always save you here. Sometimes it just keeps you available. So what do you do instead? You stop reacting in the way they count on. You stop giving immediate emotional fuel. You stop stepping into every trap with your heart wide open, because narcissists are often deeply dependent on outside reaction. They stir conflict because conflict keeps them central. They provoke because provocation proves they can still reach inside your mind. They create tension because tension keeps the spotlight on them. Once you understand that, your job is no longer to out-argue them. Your job is to stop feeding the machine. And that is where emotional detachment stops being an abstract idea and becomes a survival skill. Emotional detachment does not mean you feel nothing. It does not mean you become robotic or numb or dead inside. It means you learn how to keep your inner balance while they try to shake it. It means you stop handing them the remote control to your emotional state. That is a skill. And yes, it takes practice. Because when someone pushes your guilt, twists your words, mocks your feelings, or acts outrageous on purpose, every part of you may want to react. You may want to defend yourself, correct the lie, expose the contradiction, set the record straight. That urge is deeply human. But with a narcissist, reaction often becomes their reward. So the work is to pause, to see the bait for what it is, to refuse the script. This is where the gray rock method can help. You become uninteresting to the game. Your tone gets simpler, your answers get shorter, your energy gets flatter. No fireworks, no emotional feast, no long explanations, no dramatic pushback. You do not give them the kind of response they can feed on. And yes, this feels unnatural at first, especially if you are someone who values honesty and direct communication. But remember who you are dealing with. You are not in a healthy conflict. You are in a manufactured one. Gray rocking is not about being fake. It is about becoming strategically unavailable to manipulation. That might mean saying, okay, instead of defending yourself for 20 minutes, it might mean leaving the room instead of finishing the fight. It might mean refusing to answer loaded questions. It might mean giving them less personal information, less access, less emotional material. They want movement. They want intensity. They want proof they still matter enough to disturb your peace. And when that proof starts disappearing, their power begins to crack. Let us be honest, though. This is hard. Really hard. It is not easy to sit still while someone says things that are unfair, false, or cruel. It is not easy to hear accusations that distort your whole character and choose not to fight back. It is not easy to watch someone rewrite history and act as if your pain is the problem. This work goes against the instinct to defend your dignity. But the deeper truth is this. Your dignity does not depend on being understood by a person committed to misunderstanding you. Read that again in your mind. It changes everything. If they say you are selfish because you set a boundary, let them say it. If they call you cold because you stopped overgiving, let them. If they tell others a twisted story, you do not always need to chase every rumor down and crush it with perfect detail. Sometimes that chase becomes a second prison. This does not mean you never protect yourself in practical ways. In serious cases, especially with family, work, finances, or legal matters, you may need records, support, distance, and clear action. But emotionally, the shift is this. You stop trying to make an unsafe person hold the truth carefully. They will not. So your peace cannot depend on that miracle. Self-discipline becomes the bridge, the ability to tell yourself, I do not need to correct every lie. I do not need to answer every attack. I do not need to prove my worth to someone who survives by denying it. That kind of discipline is not weakness. It is power without noise. It is strength that no longer performs for approval. And here's the beautiful part. The less reactive you become, the more you start to feel yourself coming back. Your mind gets clearer. Your body gets quieter. Your energy stops bleeding out through old openings. And that return to yourself is the real victory. There is another trap you have to escape, and it is the endless conflict loop. A narcissist can keep a person trapped for years inside repeated arguments that never truly go anywhere. You think maybe if you say it one more way, maybe if you explain the sequence slowly, maybe if you bring enough examples, maybe then they will finally see it, but the argument was never built to reach the truth. It was built to keep you engaged. That is the hidden design. Think about how often the subject changes. You bring up one real issue, something hurtful, dishonest, or disrespectful that they did. And within minutes, you are defending your tone, your memory, your motives, your past mistakes, your entire character. Suddenly, the original issue is gone. Now you are in a maze. That maze is not an accident. They deflect. They shift blame. They bring up old things. They twist your words. They widen the topic until nothing can be solved. Then, while you are exhausted and trying to hold on to the original point, they act calm and you look reactive. This is why so many good people leave these interactions feeling confused, guilty, and mentally worn out. They entered the conversation hoping to solve one thing. They left feeling like they themselves became the issue. That is the flip. That is the trap. And once you see it, you start responding differently. You stop trying to win a debate that was rigged before it began. You stop believing that perfect logic will save you from a person who does not care about logic when it threatens their control. You stop confusing endless discussion with progress. Sometimes the most powerful sentence in the room is no sentence at all. Sometimes the strongest move is ending the conversation, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that truth does not grow in poisoned soil. Disengaging does not mean you let abuse continue without boundaries. It means your boundaries become cleaner and less emotional. You stop announcing them 10 times and start living them once. That is a major shift. With a narcissist, long boundary speeches often become entertainment. They hear the emotion, not the line. So instead of saying, I really need you to understand how much this hurts me and why I am asking for this basic respect, over and over, the new move may sound more like this. If this continues, I am leaving the conversation. If you speak to me that way, I will end the call. If that happens again, I will not be available. Short, clear, calm. Then you follow through. That follow through is the part that teaches reality, not the speech, not the warning, the action. This is where many people struggle because they have been trained to explain before they act, soften before they act, apologize before they act, and sometimes cancel the boundary entirely if the other person gets upset enough. But a narcissist often uses that hesitation. They test, they push, they act offended that you even have limits. They may punish you with distance, rage, pity plays, or smears. Stay steady anyway. A boundary that only exists when the other person likes it is not really a boundary. It is a request. And requests do not work well with people who feel entitled to your energy. This is why consequences matter. Not cruel consequences, not revenge, just reality. Access changes when behavior does not. That is healthy, that is sane, that is adult. And if they call it harsh, controlling, selfish, or dramatic, remember what is happening. The system is losing easy access to you. Of course it reacts. Do not mistake their reaction for proof that your boundary is wrong. Very often, it is proof that your boundary is finally real. At some point, you may notice something almost shocking. The less you chase, the less they can pull you. The less you explain, the less tangled you feel. The less you seek their approval, the weaker their hold becomes. That is not magic. It is the natural result of taking your energy back. Narcissistic dynamics depend on your participation. Not because you caused them and not because you deserve blame, but because manipulation requires access. Once access changes, the dynamic changes. Sometimes they escalate for a while when they realize the old methods are not working. They may become sweeter or colder or louder or more pathetic or more aggressive. They may suddenly act like they miss you deeply. They may act like you are cruel for pulling away. They may rewrite the entire story to make themselves look abandoned. This is where many people get pulled back in because the change feels dramatic, and drama can look like proof that something important is happening. But not every strong emotional reaction means love. Sometimes it just means control is slipping. So if you are in that phase, be careful. Watch actions, watch consistency, watch whether the respect becomes real or whether the performance only lasts until access is restored. This next part is important. Freedom from a narcissist is often less dramatic than people expect. It is not always a huge final speech. It is not always a perfect ending. Sometimes it is built in quiet moments, the moment you do not answer the bait, the moment you stop defending, the moment you stop checking if they finally understand, the moment you realize your body feels calmer without their voice in your day, the moment you see that peace feels unfamiliar only because chaos was made to feel normal. Those moments matter. They are not small. They are the beginning of your return. And in the end, the strongest response to a narcissist is usually not rage. It is not revenge. It is not the fantasy of finally saying the one perfect thing that leaves them speechless. The strongest response is indifference born from clarity. Real indifference, not fake coldness, not performative silence. I mean the deep inner shift where their approval no longer feeds you, their criticism no longer defines you, and their emotional storms no longer decide the weather inside your mind. That is freedom. Because a narcissist cannot control what they cannot provoke. They cannot dominate a person who no longer enters the game. They cannot keep feeding on someone who has become emotionally unavailable to manipulation. That does not mean you never feel hurt. It means the hurt no longer owns your choices. It means you start choosing peace over proving, distance over drama, truth over fantasy, self-respect over endless access. If you remember nothing else, remember this. You do not beat a narcissist by outplaying them in their own chaos. You beat the pattern by stepping out of it. You stop hoping they will become the safe place they never chose to be. You stop treating their confusion as your responsibility. You stop offering your mind as a courtroom where they get to keep trying the same case against your worth, and once you do that, their power begins to fall apart. Slowly sometimes, painfully sometimes, but truly.